It is primarily a private pay industry. And then the other thing is it's not so much medical. It's really a hospitality-driven business where there's some medical support, but the medical support's not necessarily provided by the assisted living community. It might be they're bringing in some of that medical support. So you don't have such a high level of liability or responsibility that you would find in, say, a skilled nursing facility or, in a hospital type setting where you have a higher level of care. Really, we're in the hospitality business.
This episode brought to you by Suites at Madison. Meeting and conference rooms for rent by the hour, week, month, or year. Suites at Madison, where business gets done. Check them out at www.downtowntampaoffice.com. Now, on to the show.
You are listening to the Invest Florida Real Estate Show, covering topics in lending, buy and sell strategies, property management, hot markets, and tips and tools to guide you along the way on your path to real estate success. You want Florida investment real estate talk? You have come to the right place. And now, our hosts, Eric Odom and Steven Silverman.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Invest Florida Real Estate Show. This is your co-host, Eric Odom, along with Steven Silverman. Steven Silverstein.
You know what your problem is, Eric? You've been doing so much due diligence. I think your mind's going a little dizzy. You can't get the words out.
It's fried.
I think you're fried, totally fried.
Well, it's interesting. A lot of people don't realize that this is something that we do, but there's an investor client that has purchased a retail center. And I've been helping with the due diligence. I did not find the deal. I did not broker it, but he wants help on another set of eyes looking at the books and looking at any kind of issues that might be with the property, from tenants to environmental issues, and maybe isn't familiar with some of the vendors that might sell due diligence services, and he needs help with some of these things. So, we do that as well. And he contacted me and just asked him to help hold his hand a little bit, put another set of eyes on it, and we do that. And it's been pretty intensive. It's the second one I've done here in the last several months, and trying to get it wrapped up so we can get the building closed. And we got two closings on coming up here right after the first of the year. So it's been there's been some pressure involved. Not going to lie. And then we've got the holiday season that we're just wrapping up now, and I'm ready to get back to some normalcy in a new 2018. What else is going on, Stephen?
Well, it is going to be, we're expecting growth to continue as we move forward. And there's just been so many things, a lot of deals going on, a lot of people kicking tires now. So, I think sellers have to be careful that they really have qualified buyers looking at their properties.
Yeah, a lot of people trying to get in the game. The topic we're going to talk about today is very different from what you've accustomed to hear on other podcasts. There's not a lot of discussion about what we're getting ready to talk about, but this is multifamily, guys. Don't kid yourself. It's a different form of multifamily, and don't look past this opportunity that we're getting ready to talk about. It might be the fastest growing sector of the real estate market. It is different because it's a little bit more service oriented in nature, but I think you might be missing opportunities if you're not at least paying attention to this market segment and this niche, and looking for perhaps people to work with as this growing market evolves. And it's really going to be exploding quite rapidly here over the next 15 to 20 years. Stephen, anything else you want to add before we get rolling into our guest?
Well, what you said is really relevant. All of us are aware of this industry. I'm looking forward to learning about it, so let's move on. Today we have with us Kris Chana. Kris and his wife Chelsea Chana opened Chelsea Place Living in 2011, and it has become one of the most respected assisted living communities in Charlotte County, Florida. Both Kris and Chelsea graduated from the University of Florida with a Bachelor of Science in Finance and a minor in Entrepreneurship. They have a passion for helping seniors, and they operate a senior living facility, assisted living facility in Charlotte County, and also an assisted daycare center for seniors. So, Kris, welcome to the Invest Florida show.
Well, thanks for having us, guys. For having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey, Kris, thanks so much for joining us. We've had multiple requests for people to help or to have a guest talk about this topic. And I think everybody understands the demographics, and we'll talk about that a little bit going into it. But it's such a mystery to people because you have this dichotomy and of really large institutional players in this market. And then you're going to talk to us about another sector of it. But I think it's like a real estate investor looks at this and they get swallowed by it and say, I don't know how I can participate. It's confusing to me. It seems like it's mostly CalPERS that are involved in funding these things and the New York Fires Fund. So why don't you talk a little bit and dispel some of those myths that it's just an institutional market game, Kris?
Sure. Yeah. I always find it so interesting or intriguing because, in the state of Florida, there's, I think somewhere around 2,800 assisted living communities. And if you look at like the types of assisted living facilities that are there that exist, you'll find that like somewhere between like 70, 80% of them are actually smaller. And that meaning like somewhere between like 16 beds and less. And then, and that other, 20 to 30% is your 12 beds and up. And then, into your like 40, 50, and then like your 100 and 120 beds. So there's such a huge number of small assisted living communities, that I think most people, they don't even realize that, when they are going down the road, they only see the big guys. They don't realize that, in that same county, there might be another 10 or 20 or 40 assisted living communities, but they're all kind of hidden, sometimes in residential neighborhoods, sometimes off beaten paths where, they don't have the same exposure as a large like Brookdale or Holiday community. So I think there's such a wide, spread from small to big, and I think most people don't even realize that exists.
So it's really a mom and pop driven industry to some extent.
Yeah, that's a surprise.
Yeah, it is. The number of, smaller communities out there really, it surpasses the number of the big ones in a big way.
And let's talk about the ALFs. Like, what exactly is that, and why should real estate investors care about it? I mean, we know the wave of baby boomers as they age, that's the primary driver. But tell us a little bit about ALF, and for those that might not understand exactly what it is.
Yeah, I think the most common thing, and I think it just depends on if you're, immersed in this industry or not, but I know the most common thing I find that it seems like most people assume assisted living is like a nursing home. And I think, and if that is the case, then what happens is they assume that there's more medical, requirements or there's more of a medical thing going on. Another thing people assume is assisted living is compensated or the revenue streams come in some cases, by Medicare, or other insurances. And I think that's another misconception that I find all the time. And so, the reality of it is assisted living is really a private pay industry. There is not a lot of Medicare, there's not a lot of insurances that actually cover any of the costs of assisted living communities. And, so that's an interesting, piece to it as well, because it is primarily a private pay industry. And then the other thing is it's not so much medical. It's really a hospitality driven business where there's some medical support, but the medical support's not necessarily provided by the assisted living community. It might be they're bringing in some of that medical support. So you don't have such a high level of liability or responsibility that you would find in, say, a skilled nursing facility or, in a hospital type setting where you have a higher level of care. Really, we're in the hospitality business.
The model almost sounds like a combination between a hotel and an apartment. Exactly.
Yeah. You got some assistance there for those basic necessities, but you're not performing any sort of skilled nursing, in most cases, you're not performing, injections, you're not performing, a lot of these other things. Now, there are 4 different license types in assisted living, and each of those licenses allow for, different, services to be provided. So depending on which license type a facility is licensed, you might be able to provide some more skilled type care. But the intention of assisted living is really more of a hospitality model. There is that hands-on care where it's needed. There are those reminders where it's needed, but it's not a skilled nursing, level of care. There's not there's not the consistent medical oversight on a daily basis that you might find in skilled nursing.
So you're not providing skilled nursing, but you are providing meals.
Yes, you're providing meals. You might be helping someone with showers. You might be reminding them to take their medications. So you might be actually bringing medicine to them, but you're not necessarily changing medications, changing orders. You're not doing those things on site. A doctor might change the order, but you just follow what the doctor says.
I know it's difficult to say what the cost is, but is there a kind of range that people pay?
Sure. I think, and it's very wide. I think what you'll find is there's some small facilities that, might cater to more of a Medicaid crowd. And you might have, 2 people to a room, and they might be anywhere between $1,800 and $2,500 per month, in those settings. You might have, even some large facilities that might be that way as well. So you're going to have that side of the coin, and then you're going to have facilities, maybe like ourselves. We start at $4,000 a month, and then we vary our pricing based on certain things as well. And then you might find even higher than that. I know in Naples they opened up a high scale assisted living community where I think the starting rate on a pretty independent side where you're not adding a lot of add-ons, somewhere between $5,000 and $6,000 a month. And it's a really high-end assisted living community. So I think you're going to see a wide range. Plus, some assisted living facilities offer memory care, or they might be just strictly a memory care assisted living community. And in those cases, they're going to charge a higher rate as well. So typically, you're going to see anywhere between, say, $4,000 and probably $6,000 for a memory care unit. Again, a wide range depending on the type of facility. The type of residents that they're trying to attract, whether it's memory care or whether it's a traditional assisted living community, whether it's small or big. So very different options.
And the services that they provide, we spoke about medical, we spoke about meals. What about entertainment and trips and things like? Does that vary a lot?
For the most part, that's pretty. I would think you would walk into any assisted living community and you would expect, and in most cases you're going to expect to see that, yes, they offer transportation. Yes, they do outings, and they have a structured activities program every day. I mean, these are all some of this stuff, like the activities are kind of overseen by, the state, because we are governed by, the Agency for Healthcare Administration. So, some of that stuff might be overseen by the state, so that it might be required that we have so many activities, per day, so many hours of activities per day. But in most cases, what you're going to find is there is a pretty standardized, they offer transportation, housekeeping, laundry, activities, outings, all that kind of stuff. So a lot of places might have, an in-house doctor, an in-house podiatrist. They might have, these people that were going to come in-house and take care of some of these things. So, these folks aren't having to leave the facility, so often, to see the doctor, to get the medical care they need. So,
I want to reinforce here that we have a lot of listeners that deal with multifamily. This is multifamily with additional services. And right. This is why you have to pay attention to this. We're entering in the largest wave of a generation right now, starting to move into these facilities, and there's going to be tremendous demand. Kris, do you want to talk anything more about sort of the business cycle of the ALFs right now in terms of what's coming demographically or what's going on with the business that you see in terms of from growth standpoint?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I definitely see huge growth. I mean, I think we're, right now they say there's, 40 something million, 65, or at the age of 65 and up. And then, the projections are that, it'll be 80 or 90 or something million, here in the next, 10, 20, 30 years. So as we go through that life cycle of it, I mean, there's just a huge growth for it. I think the biggest thing is trying to figure out the timing of that market.
Right.
I think, we're seeing a ton of places being built today in today's world, but a lot of them are those big places, the 120 bed, the 100 bed,
the institutional guys.
Large.
Yeah, sure.
the institutional guys. So I see, but there's a lot of pre-planning that has to go in place in order to break ground and all that stuff. So yeah, they're popping up left and right now. I think all that infrastructure is being built in advance of this true need that's coming, because what I'm finding is in most cases, people that are moving into assisted living now are anywhere, they're somewhere in their 80s and 90s. It's amazing that, when they used to move into maybe a nursing home or, it's just the 65 is like, is the new, 85. I mean, it's just really, there's been a significant change and when people need these services, and a significant change as to when, people say, I've had enough of, trying to do this on my own and I'm ready to, get rid of the house and
get some help.
And
sure.
Move on.
Sure.
Yeah. So I think, the demand is there and it's great. I think that if there's one thing that I've seen in the industry, and again, it depends on the area and how saturated the market is with these communities. But I think Florida, in general is a pretty safe bet. But at the same time, I think what we're finding is the moves into assisted living versus the number of people that are getting older every day it's a very different number. It's a very different percentage. So I think it's important to know that even though there's all this hype, there's a significant increase in these number of people getting older. That number of increase of new people moving into assisted living every day is not that same, is not at that same growth cycle yet.
Are there certain areas where, you mentioned demand or infrastructure is coming in ahead of demand. Are there any areas where you think there's particular opportunity or particular overbuilding?
Overbuilding or underbuilding?
Opportunities, opportunities, period.
Oh, sure. I don't know much about the Tampa market. I will say, even in the Sarasota market, though, I live in Lakewood Ranch, Sarasota area. And so there's a company, I think called Inspired Living, which, they just opened up a community there. And I want to say, they filled that thing up, really fast. And so what seems to be is that you got a Sarasota with a market, size of somewhere around 600,000 or 500,000 people. And it seems like, there's maybe a smaller shortage of newer assisted living facilities. So, in that area, you see this greater demand for it, because that facility was able to fill up a lot sooner. In other areas I've seen in Fort Myers, there's a ton of coverage. There's a ton of assisted living facilities in there, and they're still building new ones. But it just seems like, even in say Charlotte County, not that they were overbuilt, but it just seems like the demand for new assisted living facilities in this area is not as great at this moment as say the Sarasota County area. So I think every area is going to be a little bit different, and then the demand for big versus small is going to be very different, because I think the type of people that might move into a larger assisted living facility versus the ones that might move into a smaller one, they might have different care needs as well. And their family that's looking into it might have different, different ideas about what they want for their parents. Because a lot of times you find that this industry, people are searching on behalf of their loved one.
Sure. Tell us about your facilities. Did you build them yourself, ground up, or were they existing structures that you converted? And what do the interiors look like? Is there a shared bathroom, or is there a bathroom in each one of the suites, or how does that look?
Sure. So in our community, we purchased ours, out of foreclosure back in 2011, because after that housing crash, the whole market just changed. And so anyways, the people that had purchased our assisted living facility before, they, ended up filing for foreclosure. So we took it over in 2011. And so we bought an existing building that was used as an assisted living facility. But when we bought it, it was empty at the time. So we kind of started from scratch in that setting. Now, what was interesting about that, it was an older building, and so it didn't quite meet the ADA compliance that a new building would have to, but we were grandfathered in because of the fact that, it was an older building, and it was an assisted living facility that we took over and turned back into an assisted living facility. So since we didn't change the usage, we didn't have to bring everything up to ADA compliance.
And how many beds, how many people do you have in there?
So we have 12 residents. I know the people that had it before us, they set it up as all semi-private rooms. We set it up as all private rooms. So we have smaller, a smaller population, but our goal is really to focus on a higher quality of care, and focus on a smaller number of residents. And so, we might be, higher than your state average, but we're going to but we're giving a higher quality of care. We're focusing on that quality of care piece.
Mm-hmm. And so there's bathrooms in each one of the rooms. Did you tell me?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a bathroom in each one. Some rooms might have their own private bathroom because of the age of our building and the fact that the previous owners over time, back in the 70s, they turned it into an assisted living facility, and they did a couple additions. Some bathrooms have like a Jack and Jill setup, where they share a bathroom. Some might have their own bathroom in their rooms. And in our facility, because it wasn't built and thought out all at once, it has, not every room is the same. And I think you'll find that in some of the smaller ones. It's depending, because I think what you'll find a lot of times in a small assisted living community is you might find that, a building that had been converted into an assisted living facility over the years. You may not find it a lot of cases where someone's built a facility of that size specific for assisted living. Uh-huh. I mean, there's some, but not in every case is that how they work. I mean, a lot of times people have converted these spaces into assisted living, or, in the case of the gentleman that I learned from, he took a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, and he, converted a couple other rooms and a couple other common areas and added a bathroom, and then turned it basically into a 6 private bedroom, 3 shared bathroom, assisted living community. And it's in a residential setting.
What's the size of your building? How many square feet?
We're right at 6,000.
Mm-hmm. Now, I can hear in the back of my head investors that might be listening to the show right now being very intimidated by the operational side of things, and probably not particularly interested in running the operation because there'd be a ramp-up period for them and whatnot. It's not the mentality of a lot of real estate investors. So you had talked about there's that there might be opportunity, there would be opportunity for some of the operators to, they might have cash shortfalls to go purchase, cash flow issues to go purchase another building to expand their operation. And this might be where the opportunity comes in for a real estate investor to either do a build to suit or to buy an existing structure and help to fit it for a great tenant with a current operator. And I know the state of Florida, you're required to be licensed. So it's the possibility that they could sniff out potential partners through the state of Florida. Where else might people that want to get involved look? Is there any trade associations or anything, Kris?
Yeah, so the Florida Assisted Living Association would be one group of people that represents both small and large. I mean, what's nice about the Florida Assisted Living Association is that it caters to some of the I would say some of the 50 bed and less, or maybe some of the 60 bed and less assisted living facilities, which might be the market your listeners might be interested in that size of facility. So the Florida Assisted Living Association is a great way to start, because in most cases, like myself, we're members, and a lot of people that are proactive in trying to grow their businesses or be a part of the state legislative conversations that are going on, and the changes in assisted living are going to be a part of that group. So there's a lot of connections that can happen through Florida Assisted Living Association. And so that would be a great starting point. And then there's another one called it's like Alpha, the Assisted Living, Florida, I forget how, the Association of Assisted Living Facilities in Florida or something. I could send you the link to it, but,
you'll put that in the show notes.
That would be another association, and they cater to like the 50 plus communities. And I mean, there's still some that are small, they're a part of it, but it's nice because these two associations kind of just over time have naturally catered to different sizes. And of course there's big and small in both of them. But I know the FALA caters to the smaller ones in a really big way. So,
Kris, let me ask you a question that's been bothering me, like from when you really started talking. It seems that who's ever a resident, it's going to cost them at the lower end $25,000 a year, and at the higher end, maybe $70,000 a year. What happens to the people who can't afford to go into those types of arrangements? I mean, I'm just curious, where and what percentage of the population actually will go into assisted living?
It's sad because there's not a lot of options for those folks, because if the person doesn't need, for instance, the only government assisted program out there that's going to care for someone that, that needs help with a lot of their activities of daily living is going to be a skilled nursing home, a long-term care, the long-term care side of a skilled nursing home. Because the skilled nursing facilities have changed over the years, so now a lot of them are rehab and then long-term, and they're all, and both of these services are in the same building. Sometimes they're 50-50, sometimes they're 70-30, and that's a whole different market, so I don't want to get too off track, but just the reality of it is that if someone needs, assisted living or even more, but can't afford it, then they would have to apply for Medicaid, get onto Medicaid, and then go into a long-term care skilled nursing facility. And then for the folks that maybe wouldn't qualify for the physical side of, the physical needs of the skilled nursing facility, because you have to meet some sort of physical qualifications. If they don't meet those, and they just don't have any money, but they kind of need assisted living, then, there's not a lot of options out there. And that's a scary situation, because then in that case, you hope that there's family that can maybe help care for them, until they can meet the requirements of a skilled nursing facility. Or, in some cases, some people can get on what they call the Medicaid managed care program, and that will pay for some of the costs of assisted living, but it might be a shared room. There's not a lot of facilities that accept it. There's not a lot of availability in that segment of the market, but there are options out there, but it's just, they're a little limited, so, I know like in town here, there's only a handful of facilities that accept that program, and some may even limit like the number of people that they bring into their facility on that program. So it is kind of if people are in that position, it is kind of a tough situation to be in.
Yep. Understood. Kris, you had talked about some other opportunities, that might be coming up, and like particularly along the lines of daycare, correct?
Yes. Yep.
So how does that work? I mean, what's the concept of, maybe that's something that folks aren't familiar with, adult daycare?
Yeah, it's actually it's not a very popular, there's not a lot of them out there right now, but what's cool about it is that we provide a lot of the same services, in a senior daycare center or an adult daycare center that you would find in an assisted living facility, but you're just providing those services during the daytime hours, and in most cases, everyone's gonna be a little bit different, but it's Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, 7 to 7, whatever the case may be. It might be an 8 to a 12-hour day, sometime between Monday, sometime, during the time of like Monday through Friday. But what's interesting about it is that it helps bridge the gap, because in most cases, these baby boomers are now, the baby boomers now, the people that are 65 now, are caring for maybe their mom or dad in their own home, or they've moved down from up north to live with mom and dad and care for them, say down here. And so they may not be completely ready for assisted living yet, but they need some assistance throughout the day maybe, or they might need, or maybe their family just needs a break throughout the day. So, this is an interesting avenue that's kind of, come to market here, recently, where, it's a good solution for families if they don't, if their loved one can't financially afford assisted living, or if they're just not ready for that commitment and, of the cost, or just even the lifestyle of maybe an assisted living facility. And they still want to live at home. So this is kind of an interim solution that brings their out-of-pocket expense down, but at the same time providing, care that you might find in an assisted living, but in a structured environment, during the daytime. So it's like a supervised care,
And Kris, you had talked about that you are interested in starting one of these, and that perhaps there might be an opportunity for an investor to either purchase the building or to be equity partner with you or something along those lines. Is that accurate?
Yeah. We recently opened up a senior daycare center, so we are in the process of expanding that, and it's a nice complement to assisted living, because in most cases, even in the senior daycare side, families are coming in, and ultimately assisted living is going to be the next option. And so this is a good way to develop that relationship base and to help build some of that rapport. So when the family's like, we're ready for mom or dad, or we think assisted living is the right next step, then hopefully in this case, then we're going to be that next option for them.
And how large is your daycare facility?
We're licensed for 60 people here.
And how many square feet is that?
So we have, I'm trying to think I think it's 30. or no, it's 4,000, right? 3,900 square feet.
Okay. Kris, let's talk about a little bit if people wanted to get offline with you and talk about maybe either helping to purchase and build a facility for you, how would they reach you? What's the best way for folks to get in touch with you?
Sure. I'm always available on my cell right now. So, I mean, they could, call me on that. That's 817-201-3113, or they could email me, Kris, Kris, at chelseaplaceliving.com. I know this is definitely an area that we, are exploring different options of, purchasing real estate, for the daycare side of things, because, we feel that, it's kind of a special use property. And so it really needs to be something that, either we own or that we can lease, but that's built to a certain specification, because in some cases it's hard to just take an existing office space and turn it into what you need for a senior daycare center,
Understood. Stephen, any further questions before we let Kris go today?
Yeah. Are there any parts of Florida where you see like demand higher and where it's really underdeveloped in terms of the needs?
I'm curious about like the villages. Are those being built and developed into villages and Naples? I mean, where's the hot spots for the developments, and then where are the shortfalls?
For senior daycare or for
both
assisted living?
Both.
Yeah, I mean that's a loaded question. I know because I feel like every demographic is and I feel like for me primarily, I mean, my focus this last few years that we've been here has been primarily on the Southwest Florida side of the Southwest Florida coast here. So I'm really focused in from really kind of like the Sarasota, Bradenton area down to the Fort Myers area. So I think it'd be hard for me to speak on behalf of say the Orlando markets and your East Coast markets. But I will say that the South this whole western side of Florida, I think is just a huge growth mecca for the elderly population, or for this older community, in the sense that I think the infrastructure on the East Coast is is there. I mean, there's just no the real estate's high. There's just not a lot of places to build. I mean, in most cases, you might be building, or you might be buying an old building and trying to remodel it, but there's not a lot of vacant land available. Where I think you're going to find on the West Coast, as there's a lot more vacant land. It's a lot less expensive than the East Coast, and there's a lot of opportunity there for growth in both assisted living, but also in the senior daycare world too.
Incredible. Okay.
And what's nice about the senior daycare world is that it doesn't cost as much to get to market to create a center.
Yeah, it's not as much plumbing and all that sort of thing. It's more open space.
Yeah, because you're still caring for a very similar number of people, but you got a lot less bathrooms, less showers, less maintenance, less. It's just a totally different market. But you're still providing a very similar need, but you just have a lot less building expense. And then also you need a lot less space because they're not living there. They're just there for the daytime hours. So to create a space for a certain number of people, would require a lot less space than you would need for an assisted living facility.
So just one last question on just those two different types of facilities. Is either one typically more profitable, or you mentioned that the daycare is easier to run. I was just curious at the end of the day what you think the most profitable would be.
I could probably tell you in a year from now, but we just opened our daycare center about 3 months ago, and we have about 35 members now. So it's hard to really say, here at the end, once we hit capacity, what does everything look like? Because we're still in a growth phase. I'd say they're both very comparable. But I will say on the assisted living side is you typically have a more stabilized revenue stream, where people have made monthly commitments. It's a month-to-month contract with a 30-day cancellation type thing. So you have more stability in that as far as planning for staffing, planning for meals, planning for just availabilities, vacancies, things like that. Where in the daycare, it's just hit or miss. You don't know what each day is going to bring. Some people can. There's no commitment. For them to have to be there X amount of days or hours per week. If something happens, they go to the hospital, or they, also they need assisted living. It's a very transient industry as opposed to assisted living, where it's more of a long-term play. So I think they're very similar in what the net profits are going to be. I mean, from what I've predicted, I can't tell you exactly which one is going to be more profitable yet, but I will know soon. But it's hard to say without actually getting the capacity first here.
Understood. Kris, we really appreciate the time you invested with us today. We've already got your contact information so people know how to reach you. Is there anything else before we let you go today?
No, I just appreciate the time and, enjoyed talking, this industry. So, hey, if I can be of help to anyone, that'd be great. So. Yeah.
So Kris is looking again, just a reminder that there's an opportunity for an expansion on a property, and maybe he'd be willing to talk about either partnering on the equity side or build a suit or some such. So, Kris, thanks so much for coming on. Stephen, anything else before we let Kris go?
Kris, thank you very much, and we'll talk to you when you're a little older, and we'll find out how the daycare facility went.
That sounds fantastic. I appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. And that was Kris Chana from Chelsea Place Senior Care. Stephen, what were your thoughts?
The thing that surprised me is that it's a big industry, and it still seems to be about 70% mom and pop. There's not many industries you find that are running like that. Under 16 beds seems as the majority of the assisted living facilities.
Yeah, I mean, you guys that are doing multifamily and looking for multifamily opportunities, you might not want to operate one of these, but this is a massive growth industry. And if you can find somebody that would be the operator, and hotel folks are comfortable with this because many times the hotel folks will purchase or build the real estate out for a flagship, and there'll be a flagship operator of the facility. And it's going to be somewhat similar. It's a combination between multifamily and hotel. They're offering increased services than what you typically get off of multifamily. But man, this is a massive growth opportunity. And, try to partner with somebody like Kris or get hooked up with somebody like Kris or somebody through the Florida Assisted Living Association. There could be some really good deals, opportunities for real estate investors. And I think that's the point that I got from the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is I had misconceptions. I mean, I assumed there was a lot more intensive medical care.
Sure.
And it's really more towards the hoteling part than it is to medical care.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Stephen, anything else? Where can folks go to find other great speakers like Kris and other great ideas?
Well, I can tell you one good place to go is go to www.investfloridashow.com. And there you'll find our archive of past recordings. And you should also download the app and listen to it while you're mobile or while you're on the treadmill. There's just a lot of interesting topics on there now.
Guys, as always, we appreciate the time that you invest with us. And until next time, hasta la vista.
You've just listened to the Invest Florida podcast with Eric Odom and Stephen Silverman. Join us every week for actionable real estate investment ideas, and of course, visit our website at www.investfloridashow.com for more shows and tips on how to earn a cash flow in the real estate market in Florida. While hosts and producers of the Invest Florida show have no reason to doubt the validity of comments of our guests, we do not warranty their accuracy. Please check with your legal, financial, and tax advisors before entering into any investment. Returns will vary from person to person and deal to deal based on unique circumstances. All information expressed in this show is for educational purposes only. Opinions of the guests are not necessarily shared by the hosts and producers of the Invest Florida show.